I'm Dan Rockwell. I'm the author of The Vagrant, and the best advice I have ever received is it's not all about you.
It's not all about you. Come on, Dan, as leaders, isn't it all about us? No?
Well, I hate to disappoint myself and maybe you, but and I always thought it was. I showed up. I thought I was the center of the universe. And, in a way, you're the center of your own life, but you know what? There's more to leading and there's more to life than being the center. Making others the center is a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely. Wonderful opportunity. So when did you first realize that was good advice and not stuff to be pashad? Was that early in your career, or is that something you have to remind yourself of every day, or
I think that was yesterday, Phil. I think that was yesterday. So look, in my early life, I have engaged in so many self-defeating behaviors. Really, the list just is hugely long. And one of them is thinking, that I need to show up and explain why I'm right and tell everybody what to do and point the way. And it's, I'm going to justify myself, and I'm the center, instead of showing up to learn, to listen, to create relationships. And honestly, it is. I'm still learning that. My daughter told me, she was an adult at the time. She told me, "Dad, I think you like to scare people." And it's like, I didn't see myself. You know what I mean? I saw myself as a fuzzy pussycat, and she saw me, and others see me as pushy or, driving too hard, that kind of stuff. Ay, ay, ay. Don't even take me there, Phil.
That's funny. That's funny. So early in your career. So talk to me, Dan, about your leadership journey and what got you to the point where now you're kind of reflecting back with your awesome book.
Dissatisfaction, my friend. Dissatisfaction. Now, I'm all about feeling, contentment. I'm all about feeling good about what you're doing. I'm all about that. But there is a place, perhaps an uncomfortable place, for feeling or stepping into that pool of discontent and dissatisfaction. And honestly, Leadership Freak, the blog, the book is filled with, the main character does a lot of stupid things, all of which I did. You know what I'm saying? It's not biographical by any stretch, but the screw ups that this guy did in the book are the screw ups that I did, and I did more. But I think dissatisfaction can serve us well if it doesn't defeat us. If we look at our life and we face it and we think, well, what do you want to do about that, big boy? Do you want to do something about this, or do you just want to sit and cry for yourself? And let's face it, maybe there is a little bit of that too. But the thing that's really great is being able to step into dissatisfaction and realize you need other people in your life. Realize that you're not all that you thought you were. If you have a big ego, and if you don't have a big ego, this doesn't relate to you at all. But if you have a big ego and if you think you're all that, realizing that you aren't is a slow process. And inviting people in helps. So I think I'm going to say the answer to what brought me to this point is not just dissatisfaction, but embracing it and then facing it.
Yeah. Well, I think embracing it is often difficult for those of us that think we're pretty good at stuff, and then we realize we're humbled often. I raise my hand to that. Humbled often as a leader. Yes. So Dan, I've got to ask, do you have one moment where you can point back? And I know you probably have many like I do, but do you have one particular one that shines brightest that kind of taught you a lesson that you needed to embrace this more?
Absolutely. So I was asking my team, I learned to seek feedback. Now, first of all, that's a wonderful thing. And seek feedback in a very leaderly way, not just like, oh, do you like me? Do you like me? Am I okay? But like, declare an intention, declare what you're working on. Tell me what you see that, is helping me get there. Tell me what you see that maybe is not helping me. And so I was sat down with my team and I intentionally sought feedback. And one of the ladies on the team said, you can be pushy. Now, I've learned when somebody gives you that feedback that you want to push back. And by the way, so what I wanted to do was be pushy. Right? No, you're not right. That's not right. But I've learned just to like take a pause and then say, thank you. I did ask, do you have an example for me? And it's sometimes hard for people to come up with a specific. And she said, not exactly. And here's how the story ends. And here's the moment. 2 weeks later, approximately, I'm having a face-to-face conversation with a person. This woman is in my peripheral vision off to my left, and she is making a face. She's like, and in that instant, for the first time, I saw what pushy looked like to others. I thought it was passion. I thought it was, being committed, but it's possible for us to not see how others perceive us. And perhaps I should have said the best advice I ever got was in reading a book about, the way you see yourself is not the way people always see you. Surprise. Nuts.
It's interesting. I know I'm actively working on that with my kids because I think, I know that I come across strong. And so I'm having to take a deep breath and slow that down and do my best to, to not be pushy. But wow, that's a hard one because like you, I'd like an example. Well, a lot of times they don't give me an example because I'm the boss, and I'm using air quotes here, right? I'm the boss. So therefore, the reason they can't come to me is because they feel threatened or they worry about, retaliation or they worry about whatever. And I think our teams are often the same way. If we ask for feedback and then we snap and say, nope, not me, you're wrong. Yeah, we're not going to grow much, huh?
No, not much at all. And I think here's the thing. Passion is a wonderful thing. I mean, I'm delighted to be here with you, Phil, and I hope you come out of your shell pretty quick. All right, I'm a little concerned.
Only you can help that.
But I think what we have to just acknowledge in our head, even if we don't quite believe it down deep, is that as you step in, lots of people will start to step back. They'll let you take charge. They'll go with your answer, right? And it takes some, listen, we don't want to become passionless pushovers, right? But what we want to do is make room for others, right? And sometimes that might be as simple as this. Let others go first. And learn and affirm and agree where you can and challenge or offer options in an affirmative sort of way. But we just don't realize that sometimes people want to do more, but we are doing so much, right? We have stepped in so much that they just to kind of pull back. So I think in leadership, learning to strategically pull back and see who steps in, and then whose fire can you fuel? That's exciting.
Yeah, well, and a lot more gets done too when we light more than one fire. It's not just our fire. Now it's our fire, right? And now we've all got, to varying degrees. I mean, I would argue that the leader has to have the brightest fire because the leader has to ignite others, but everybody needs some light. Everybody needs a little flame. Everybody needs a little bit of that.
Yes. Phil, I think one of the things that perhaps helps clarify this is be passionate about people. I think sometimes we get so passionate about our brilliant ideas. I mean, my ideas are brilliant. listen, you got up this morning. I got up this morning. I didn't get up thinking I want to be stupid. I want to make stupid decisions. I want to think stupid thoughts. I got up thinking like, oh, that's a good idea, right? So, and that's awesome. We got to have confidence in our approach and our ideas and all of that, but still realizing that we could be wrong, others could be right. But I think be passionate about people as a leader. Like, what are their strengths? Where are their passions? When do you see somebody light up? Listen, this is a strategic moment. This is a transformative moment. When you watch somebody on the team just go bright and you say, let's stop. I got to stop here. You just lit up. Talk to me about what's going on. Where's that fire coming from? How can we do more of that? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and paying attention to it. I think as a leader, sometimes we get so focused on the navel gaze, we're looking down, or we're looking at our script, or we're running through everything else that we have to do, that we miss paying attention when people light up, because we're not paying attention to that. So how do we give more attention to that, Dan? How do we practice that?
Yeah, see, there you go. And here's the thing. Because we are so consumed with everything we want to do, from morning to night, we have our checklist. I want to do this. We got to get this. We got this deadline. We got this milestone. How are we doing on this? How are we doing? There's all this stuff going on that we don't take time to actually notice. The self-awareness is simply noticing yourself. And then we think about noticing others. And I would recommend this. If you're like so many people are, filled with passion, filled with enthusiasm, don't diminish your passion or enthusiasm, but commit every day, once or twice, to either walk around if you're physically present or on calls, just to start noticing people. Just notice, when they droop, you can see this on the screen. You can see this. I actually have seen this on the screen with people, and I'm always kind of, once you see the power of noticing other people's energy like this, it becomes a little more natural, and it's just a habit for me. When people lean in, when people sit up, when their eyes go wide, when they start smiling, when their language gets more fluid, right? And then it's like it's time to say, hey, I'm just curious. You just lit up. And one of the leaders I work with, I found out he loves scuba. So what does that have to do with anything? So I asked him, talk to me about what it's like when you're on a trip and you're scuba diving. What are you like? What what are some of the things you do differently while you're on a scuba trip that you do at work? And he's telling me all these things, and I'm saying, what happens if you, and I'm not going to use his actual name, what happens if you show up as Scuba Dennis at work? What if you bring that energy? How does that inform how you want to interact with people? So I think first, just noticing, just start to practice, put it on your calendar. I'm going to notice during this meeting people's energy. I'm going to notice my own energy. What's lighting me up? Because we want to follow it.
Wow. It's so interesting. But putting time on our calendar to notice and to be present and to pay attention seems almost like, well, I'm not getting anything done though. What do I need to do? But then we think about this, to your point about sharing the flame, sharing the passion. Now we are taking time to really stoke that fire higher and help others feel that more, because sometimes they don't notice themselves how lit up they are. Is that what you find too, Dan?
That is so true. We need people who see what we're good at and can say it to us and acknowledge it. I mean, I bet it's happened to you. It has happened to me. And when you notice what people are great at, when you notice where they're thriving, they haven't even noticed, because we're so You know, we're rushing from one thing to the next. We're so busy that people don't even notice themselves. And if you can do that, it is such a gift to give that to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of gifts, Dan, this book is a gift. The Vagrant. It's so interesting. First of all, you have to tell me, Dan, The Vagrant. I'm looking, there's a bird on the cover that has nothing. What's that all about, Dan?
Well, I have to give kudos to John David Mann, who we were talking about the title of the book and trying to figure out. And if you read in the book, there's some, we were thinking about hobo-ish, and there's some homelessness in there, and so we were trying to think of what the great title, the catchy title would be. And John David Mann was tinkering around with etymology and, all of these words that sort of fit some of what's in the book. And he came across the word vagrant. And the word vagrant is really a word for a bird that has been blown off its migratory course. So we went around and round about the pigeon. Who wants a pigeon on the cover of their book, right? And so we went round and round because the publishers sent us this mock-up, and it had a pigeon on it. And no, we want a strong bird, right? We want a strong bird. And we ended up right back at the original design with the pigeon on the cover, because you have a main character who is blown off course. He thinks he's doing great. He is not. He thinks he's helping himself get ahead. He is not. He's engaging in self-defeating behaviors. And I said earlier, Phil, everything, Bob is the main character in the story. Everything Bob did wrong, I did wrong. So part of it's a little humbling. The story obviously is not biographical, and it's not the story of my life. It's a fictional story. But, great fiction has a lot of truth in it. And, don't tell anybody, but every bad thing Bob did, I did all that stuff too, and more.
Yeah. Same. I read that, and it is humbling. It's so interesting. We think we're doing everything right, and then we find out we're nothing more than a vagrant too, right? We're moving a little bit off center, a little left, a little right, and then suddenly, bang, it smacks us in the head. Sometimes we get that blinding flash like Bob got in the book, and sometimes we don't. So talk to me, Dan. How do we recognize when we're off course, if others are, if we're not open to that feedback, if we're not open to the fact that, hey, I could be wrong here?
Yes. Pain. All right. So I think learning to listen to that, what might be surprising or uncomfortable feedback, saves us a world of headache, because these folks, other people sometimes know us better than we know ourselves. And so when someone tells you you could be pushy, or, I don't really think you're listening very well. You're not really listening. What do you mean I'm not listening very well? You know what I'm saying? So when you receive that feedback, if you're the person who, like I was, you tend to discount it, then the next thing on the journey is pain. And it took me, I lived, for example, with frustration for years, and didn't even really pay attention to it. I just was an angry person. And the problem was I hadn't taken time to notice, and later, as the consequences to being pushy, for example, start to come to bear, and you start to fail where you think you're supposed to be succeeding, and it becomes uncomfortable. And here's the roadblock. I want to blame everybody else. It's not my problem. It's their problem. But in leadership, we have to like take a look at ourselves. I asked John Maxwell one day, he says everything stands or falls on leadership. And I said to him, John, that seems pretty heavy. It seems pretty heavy. Everything stands or falls on leadership. He says, well, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it like an opportunity. What a great lesson, right? So anyway, back to when we feel these, when we start to feel persistent, recurring anxiety, frustrations, disappointments, this is time, this is a signal. Let's step back and think, not what are they doing? What am I doing?
Wow. Lots there. Pain, though, is such an interesting point. That because we don't have to get to pain. We can listen sooner. I mean, I that's such a great reminder. I mean, pain is the ultimate, makes you notice, smacks you in the face and stop. You're in pain. And now I have a choice, right? I can continue the pain. I can take responsibility for the pain, or I can say, no, it's not my fault, not my problem. So I think that's such a great lesson. I mean, Dan, I have to say, in the book, I felt for Bob. I was like, oh man, like, to quote Maxwell, right? John says, right, I see the train a coming. Well, I could see Bob's about to get hit by this train, and yet often I don't see the train, the pain about to see me. So noticing more and taking responsibility for more is a great way to get started on that journey. And before we go, I want to dive deeper a little bit more into the book, but I have to ask, leadership freak, Dan.
Yes.
Where did you come up with that? Because that can, I was writing Slacker Manager. We talked about this before, right? I'm like Slacker Manager, another juxtaposition of words that most don't think about. But leadership freak, that's interesting, Dan. So tell me about that.
Yes. So I had earned an MBA later in life. I became interested in leadership because it dawned on me slowly that I wasn't nearly as good at it as I thought I was. And so I became very passionate about leadership, and I was trying to think about channels. How can I learn? And it wasn't so much how can I share with everybody everything I know, as much as how can I contribute? How can I learn? And I thought about starting this blog, which I've been saying 10 years ago or so. And someone said, I think that's more like 15. It's more like 15. It's like, holy cow. But anyway, I was working at the Penn State affiliate here in our community, and I was sitting at my desk and I was tinkering around with language, and I was thinking about sports fanatics and, people who get very passionate about things. And all of a sudden, leadership freak landed on my desk. And that was it. Sounded good to me.
Yeah, no, it is good. It's so interesting to think about that. And yeah, it's been 15 years. That's so funny.
Oh, craziness.
That for sure. So you've seen a lot of change there, I'm sure, in yourself and your writing. What's changed in 15 years, Dan, that maybe is the most surprising to you?
I had a huge transformation about 10 years ago or so, and probably now it's more than that. It was early on in the leadership freak career. There is a 60-day period. I had 3 conversations that were really transformative when they all fit together. And so part of the journey hinges, when I started, I thought about, okay, 5 ways to run great meetings. 6 ways to have excellent one-on-ones. We all need that stuff. I still write about that very regularly. But something really changed during that 60-day period. I had 3 conversations. I had a conversation with the CEO of Southwest Airlines, Jim Parker. And he was the CEO during 9/11. So I was so excited. They sent me his book. I was so excited to have a conversation with him. I want to talk to this guy. So finally, I'd asked him during the conversation, what do you love to tell leaders? What's your favorite advice you love to tell leaders? And he said, I love to tell leaders, be yourself. Phil, that is the most underwhelming advice I have ever heard in my life. I want to hear, I don't know, 3 ways to run great meeting, something. So I just obviously did not say that in our conversation, but it did not impress me. I'm a dairy farm boy from Central Maine originally, right? We don't have any of this be yourself malarkey, right? We just get up and do our chores. We don't worry about that stuff. It doesn't matter. So anyway, I had that conversation. A week or 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a conversation with Frances Hesselbein. Frances Hesselbein was a CEO of the Girl Scouts, just a fantastic, highly respected leader, a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, went to the White House and got that. I said, how was that? And she said, well, I showed up. You have to give a little talk. She said, I thought I ought to try to say something smart. You know what I'm saying? So I decided to, clarify my definition of leadership. I said, what's your definition of leadership? She said, leadership is a matter of how to be, not how to do. Okay. I'm thinking about Jim Parker, be yourself. Now, Frances Hesselbein gives me this ridiculous definition of leadership, right? Leadership is a matter of how to be. And Warren Bennis does something very similar. He talks about leadership as being yourself. And all of that makes me feel like a gerbil on an exercise wheel. I don't get it. Be yourself. What does that have to do with anything? I didn't even know how to do it, which is why, in the Vagrant, this does tie, because in the Vagrant, this guy's lost himself. But the third conversation was with Harry Kramer. Harry Kramer at the time was the CEO of Baxter Pharmaceutical. Baxter Pharmaceutical is a global pharmaceutical company, tens of thousands of employees. When Harry was in college, he met a girl. They fell in love. This girl's dad found out about it. He found out they were serious. Not that they were engaged or anything, but anyway, he invited Harry to come to Wisconsin for Christmas break. First of all, the Bahamas for Christmas break? Yes. Fort Lauderdale for Christmas break? Yes. Wisconsin for Christmas break? I think I have a fever. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, he got invited and he went. Tom Jansen was his now father-in-law, met him at the airport. He said to Harry, I have plans for us. That's when I turn around. It's like, you're scaring me, man. Then you think, well, maybe it's like they're going to do man things, right? We're going to sit in the basement, drink beer, and watch football, right? We're going to go hunting. We're going to kill something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what is this? Tom Jansen took Harry Kramer, this college student, on a 3-day silent retreat. Harry said to me, Dan, I hadn't been silent for 3 minutes in my whole life, much less 3 days. And I have to tell you, the conversation, when the conversation ended, the first sentence of the post that I wrote about Harry Kramer, I just hung up the phone with Harry Kramer and my ear is on fire. He talks like a machine gun shoots. He said that 3 days of silence taught me about self-reflection. And now he said all of his life, and this was a long time ago, all of his life, he said, I have always, every winter break, or not just break for him after college, but every winter I end up at this 3-day silent retreat. I have never missed it. Harry engaged in a daily self-reflection practice. Changed his life. Now you have to put these 3 things together. And I know I'm talking too long here, Phil. I'm going to try to cut this off. I'm in love with my own voice. Is it okay?
It's okay with me.
So anyway, you have Be Yourself, Jim Parker from Southwest Airlines. You have Leadership is a Matter of How to Be, Not How to Do, Francis Hesselbein. When my conversation with Harry at the end of that 60-day period helped me get a sense of what it might look like to engage in identity-based leadership. How to know yourself, bring yourself, how to choose how you show up as your true self, not let everything push you around. Those three things were really, those three conversations were transformative to me. Francis, not that long ago, passed away, as you know, and Jim passed away unexpectedly as well. I don't even know if Harry knows this or not. We've talked a few times, and I don't know if I actually ever told him, but every time I talk to Harry, he has a second book out, and it's all about self-reflection and values. And I said to him the last time I talked to him, I said, Harry, you are a one-string banjo. Every time I talk to you, it's the same thing. But I'll tell you what, the leaders I work with, somewhere around the third conversation after, in this coaching experience for them, I'm going to ask them, talk to me about your self-reflection practice. They look at me like a cow looks at a new gate. They got no idea, most of them, right? But if we're not reflecting, if we're not practicing this in a structured way, not just contemplating like the meaning of life, but in a structured way, which is at the end of the book, we give people 5 ways to do this. If you're not self-reflecting, then you're probably losing yourself to work. That's your identity, and now it's controlling you. And eventually, that's very unusual for that to end up in a good place.
Wow. That's 3 big pieces of advice there. Being yourself, how to be, not how to do, and to make sure that you have daily self-reflection. And then you said something there that really hit me. You said it's about how to choose. It's about how to choose. And that's so interesting to me. The book has lots of choices that Bob makes in there. So help us, Dan, help us make one more choice here. Give us one of the 5 ways to be better at self-reflection, because as you say that, you might as well be holding up a mirror to my face, because that's absolutely not something that I do as well as I could. So help us be better at self-reflection. Give us one actionable tip.
Sure. I think that the simplest thing to do would be to first of all, don't aim high. I'm not going to spend an hour or a half an hour, like reflecting and just kind of being quiet and all of that. But I would suggest at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, come up with 3 questions that speak to the kind of person you want to show up like that day. Choose how you show up. So I want to show up and be curious. I want to show up and fuel people's energy. I want to, how do you want to show up? And it has to be part of who you are, obviously, part of, something in your values. And now find 2 or 3 questions. How did people respond? How did I leave people? What's my best evaluation of after our conversation? How were they? Was the energy up or was the energy down? And then at the end of the day, just write one sentence. Just write one sentence about those 3 questions, not a bunch. Now, if you want to write more, go ahead. And I think very quickly, another way to do this in a very useful thing, and in the book, I think it's the 3rd practice, bring the outside in, invite other people. I think self-reflection in isolation leads to self-deception, right? Because we don't see ourselves clearly enough. Now, we have to do it by ourselves, but we also want to have other people speak into our lives. And so that's where you're seeking feedback. You're declaring an intention. I'm going to show up a certain way. Help me know how I'm doing with that. And and invite people in. And the book in the back explains that a little bit. By the way, I just see Ben Linkwaller. I can't pronounce. Yes.
Yep.
I know Ben. Good to see you, Ben. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here, Ben. Thank you. Thank you. So Dan, I think that's a great place to kind of leave us here. Self-reflection and isolation leads to self-deception. I think a lot of that is in your book in The Vagrant. A lot of that. And The Vagrant, as we said, right? Vagrant is a pigeon or a bird that's flown slightly off course. And hopefully with this, Dan, we've blown them a little bit back on course. We've helped people see a little better way that they have that's possible. So folks, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I got to get this book, it drops tomorrow. You can go to leadershipfreak.blog, get to know more from Dan Rockwell, get a copy of the book, learn more. But Dan, if people have questions or they have feedback about the book, obviously they can go to your website. But where's your favorite social network where people can connect with you and maybe ask you questions about being a leadership freak?
Sure. I've done away with the automatic scheduling on Twitter or X. I shouldn't, not 100%. You're allowed inside of Twitter to do a little bit of scheduling, but it's a little awkward, so I don't do a lot of it. If I'm tweeting on Twitter, I'm almost always there, and people can connect with me there. I'm there fairly regularly. And if you see that the tweet has bold or italic in it, you can only do that live. So that would indicate that that's live and I'm there, and you can send me a message. And if you want to, just send me an email, dan@leadershipfreak.com.
That is awesome. Connect with Dan, get to know Dan, and get to know The Vagrant. If you haven't, get a copy of this, gang. I got an early copy. It's the first book I got in my new house in Ohio, and I devoured it. I think it is worth your time and worth your investment. If you're feeling a little blown off course, if you're wondering, hey, where am I? Dan's got some great insight in there. Dan and John David Mann did an awesome job of crafting a story that's powerful and instructive. And Dan, thanks for pouring into us today, man. So much great stuff. I so appreciate you. Thank you.
Phil, I'm honored that you would dare to let me on and share me and my ideas with your audience. I'm always aware that it's an act of trust, and you're extending to me something that you have earned yourself. And so thank you so much. It's an honor.
My pleasure. Thank you.